Well, welcome to Cardiff Bay on a very sunny day, which is the perfect time for me to talk about exposure. And I don't mean ripping your trousers off in public, the other kind of exposure. Now, back in days of yore, / the film days, managing your exposure on a bright day like today was quite difficult because you're already working with limitations. You have a set ISO from the film stock you choose. Now, you can choose a slow film stock, but then if you go indoors, where you can't shoot it at all, on bright days like today, I often shoot something like an ISO 80 film, and you have to be in bright sunlight. Even still, that's often not enough to be able to open your aperture fully because film cameras had fairly limited shutter speed options. Most of them, up until about the mid-80s, had a maximum of about 1/2000th of a second. Now, on modern cameras, this is less of an issue. The Panasonic S5 2X that I'm shooting with at the moment goes up to 1/8000th of a second with its mechanical shutter. This is kind of the limit as to where mechanical shutters got to, I think. But they can go further with electronic shutter. However, that's not always the perfect option because you start running into things like rolling shutter issues. So the solution is the same through both eras, and that is to use neutral density filters. This Nikon F3, for example, has a fastest available shutter speed of 1/2000th of a second, which when the camera came out was very fast. But on a bright day like today, when you're wanting to shoot at f1.8, you've already got ISO 200 film loaded in the camera, it's not fast enough, and you're going to have to cut the light coming into the camera in another way. So you may have noticed at the start of this video that it was marked as sponsored. Now that's not because anyone's paying me to make it, far from it, but I did receive this set of filters from Freewell to review or to test, and they didn't explicitly say they want them back. But I'm going to be using them throughout this video, so that's why I've marked it as such. Just bear that in mind. I will talk a little bit about them. They're rather good, and they're quite useful for demonstrating what I'm talking about. This set has 3 fixed ND filters in it. And because they're magnetic, they're quite quick to swap over. That's rather nice, but even more convenient is a variable ND, which is what I'm currently using to film myself with. So why wouldn't you use that all the time? Well, there is a downside to them. Yes, so this is the future editing version of myself, and I did originally film a segment trying to explain the problems with variable NDs whilst in Cardiff Bay, but it was very hot and that makes me a bit stupid, and so the explanation wasn't very good. So instead of me trying to do it again now, go and check out a video by Philip Bloom, which is very good. He goes into a lot of detail about it. Coincidentally, it's also about another type of Freewell filter, but I haven't even used that one, so I have no opinion on it. But it's very interesting, and fundamentally the problem with a lot of variable NDs is until you buy them, you often don't know what sort of downsides they're going to have, because a lot of the companies are strangely tight-lipped about what type of polarizers they're using in their variable NDs, because they are fundamentally 2 polarizers stacked on top of each other, and there's different combinations of linear and circular polarizers. It can have different side effects, so go and check out his video, but for now we're just going to cut back to the bay and assume I explained everything perfectly. Now, mostly what you're trying to achieve with ND filters these days when I'm shooting on modern cameras is to get a slower shutter speed. A lot of people are trying to do that in order to get very slow shutter speed so they can get blurred water, things like that. That's not something I really do. But I do like shooting with bright apertures in sunny weather. I like the contrast, I like the subject separation of bright aperture. It's something I quite enjoy. Here's an example that I shot on film earlier this year down in Tenby. And this was a very slow film on a medium format camera, which requires quite a bit of light, and I still was not able to shoot wide open at f2.8 on that. And this is where the ND filters come in very, very handy. And I have an even more extreme example today, rather than just using the film camera, because I'm not certain I'll have the film back in time in order to publish this video. I have something else that I've been testing, and that is this Sigma 50mm f1.2. They sent this over last week, and I'm going to use this in order to test the filters out a little bit more and to use it in this sort of scenario. Shooting at f1.2 on a bright sunny day, it's very challenging. The use of ND filters is much more normalised when it comes to video because you have no other option. With a fixed shutter speed, which you typically want for the correct amount of motion blur, you have even fewer options for reducing the amount of light coming into your camera. So variable NDs are very popular. The top-end cinema cameras have deployable ND filters that drop down in front of the sensor, which is extremely convenient. But for everybody else, variable NDs are the most convenient alternative, I suppose. These sorts of magnetic filters could be quite interesting, but for me I find it a bit fiddly to swap them on and off when you're trying to film. The conditions change a lot. If I go into shadow now, I'd have to adjust the amount of ND. It's quite a frustrating experience. But for photography, having magnetic filters works quite well, and I'm kind of into it. Okay, so it turns out the Cardiff Bay in the summer holidays is extremely busy, which I should have known because I lived here for years, and I'm going to retreat to somewhere a little bit quieter to continue this video. While I'm waiting in front of yet another very attractive fence for the train to arrive, let's talk a little bit more about these Freewell filters. This isn't a very comprehensive review, but the image quality seems really good. I've not noticed any strong colour cast from them. This set comes with UV filter and a circular polarizer as well, which is very nice. But it does only come with one adapter ring. That's kind of annoying. If it had two, I'd be very pleased with that, because then I can more easily swap the filters between different lenses, different cameras, things like that. The single filter ring is a bit of a shame, and it's quite fiddly to attach and detach because it's very thin, so that would be something that they could improve in a future edition. I'd also like a clip on this pouch. This is a really nice filter pouch, but I've got no way of attaching it to a bag or to my belt, and so it has to keep going back inside the bag, and that doesn't really aid you in swapping filters quickly, which is kind of the point of a magnetic filter system. So that would be nice to see, but overall, very impressed with this filter set. I'll put a link down below, an affiliate link of some description, to go and have a look at it more, but yeah, so far, pretty pleased with these. So I subsequently retired to a nice dank piece of woodland, my natural habitat, and that also was filled with screaming children. So now I'm in my office and it is nice and peaceful and quiet. But talking just a little bit more about neutral density filters in particular, it's something I wanted to re-explore, not just because I had a set to test out, but that I don't use them that much anymore. They're not as necessary as they used to be. This is because modern cameras are so capable. With those photos from yesterday, as it now was, I would not have needed filters if I was shooting on the Nikon Z9. Maybe if I had an extremely bright lens on it, but at 1.8 or something like that, it's just not necessary. It has some ridiculously high maximum shutter speed. But that's mostly me. I'm sure for many other people, they're still very useful. And in that regard, I think the change of filters in recent years to start doing these magnetic style ones is very nice. It's a huge improvement, because one of the reasons I don't use filters very often is that I drop them all the time. I hate screwing them in. I don't know why it is as irritating as it is. This is a really nice improvement, and to have a decent filter set that utilises that is something that I think is worth a look for many people.
I do think that this is a bit excessive as a kit for me, because I've only used the ND8, a 3-stop filter, all of yesterday. This set also comes with an ND64, a 6-stop, and an ND1000, a 10-stop filter. And I just never need to use those, but I don't shoot blurry water effects. So that's just me. I'm sure there's many landscape photographers who like their blurry water, for whom that would be really nice, but that's just not a way I really shoot. Historically, I had a lot more use for graduated neutral density filters, which you don't tend to get in circular form very often, where it allows you to dim the sky. But again, with modern cameras, I just underexpose and then bring the shadows up, because it's quite easy to fix that extra noise. It's very, very rare that I need them. I think of these magnetic filters a little bit more like the square filters like Kokin or Lee filters, where you could drop them in, because you can stack these really easily. You can just keep adding them onto the front of the lens, and that's quite convenient. I just don't have any real need to do it myself, so it's an interesting idea, and it's something that I wish I used more often, but I'm not massively into blurry water, so that's just me. But it was really fun to go out and shoot with a ridiculous lens yesterday, and shoot in bright sunshine is something I really enjoy doing, but I usually do it on film. But I'd be really interested to know your thoughts. Please do put them down below if you shoot this way regularly, if you have any experience with other sorts of filters. Please do let me know, because it's something I just don't use all that often anymore. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.